Do you guys remember the golden age of 3D platform games? A time where we had animated fluffy characters ranging from different personalities, wielding weapons of fantasy and embargo of double jumps, when we traversed different obstacles while avoiding, or even better, taking out whatever stands in our way. Before, our video games were super cinematic and could still tell a great story with the most fun and enjoyable over-the-top silly gameplay. I remember such times, and they were easily the greatest years of gaming the world has ever seen. During the generation of the PlayStation 2, platformers owned and flooded the market with great titles such as Rayman, Spyro, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, Sly Cooper, Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, and my all-time personal favorite, Ratchet and Clank. There is a great amount of others, but those are just a few that come to my mind. Some would say these games cater to children, which isn't necessarily wrong, but mature audiences still dived into these worlds because the challenge the gameplay offered and crude humor to be shared along the way. I vividly remember loading up Ratchet and Clank, time and time again, playing through the series start to finish, repeatedly, with my favorite being Up Your Arsenal, sneaking across rooftops as the boy Sly, being the smoothest criminal, as well as hunting down every single last precursor orb whilst anticipating the various dances Daxter had up his sleeve. These games range from colorful, beautiful worlds to more dark and serious themes, and I was just in love with them, in love with them all. Today, such platform games still do exist, such as Ratchet and Clank 2016, which was a complete remake based on his reimagining movie. PlayStation's not so great but still chill to sit back and play Knack, which brings a nice throwback couch co-op session. And of course I can't forget beautiful remakes of Crash and Spyro that I never imagined be possible. As I reflect back on the years thinking of my favorites and how successful they were, I can't help to think, well, why aren't platform games a big boom like they used to be? You can simply say audiences moved on, that a lot of people want to see something more mature, but honestly, it had to be the big boom of FPS and multiplayer. Now before I move on, I want to put my point across that I have no problem with shooters. In fact, my favorite platform games were third-person shooters themselves, but games such as Halo and Call of Duty becoming a huge success really turned the tables a bit. You guys remember Ratchet Deadlock? That game was pretty much a third-person FPS game. Get rid of all elements that make the rest of the series great. No backtracking, barely any platforming or puzzles, excluding the occasional jump from floating pad to floating pad. I still love that game for what it's worth though, but that just isn't how platformers are played. In fact, there's a lot of games nowadays that have the elements of a platform game that I wouldn't necessarily call a platformer. Think about the parkour and scaling of walls in Mirror's Edge. The game took the exact element of a platform game and made it into a very really grounded experience. The running on walls, hopping of fences, building momentum and stylish takedowns of enemies, it's all what we originally started with but on crack. Now think of experiences such as Uncharted. They have climbing, jumping, and swinging. Brain-warming puzzles that don't get too hard, but it's mixed in with Hollywood fast-paced Indiana Jones FPS action. These are the games that people are accustomed to now. Let me set straight that I think this generation has had some of the best experiences with the new route of cinematic storytelling and photorealism graphics in games such as God of War, Uncharted, Horizon Zero Dawn, Days Gone, The Last of Us, and many others. Hell, my most highly anticipated game ever in history is The Last of Us 2. The basis of my whole YouTube channel and fan base has been built up off the hype of that game. And if I were to be honest, video games have just evolved since then. Naughty Dog even said themselves that they have matured as a company and they're only moving forward and won't be returning the jack. Insomniac moved on to make Spider-Man, which is statistically the best game the studio has ever produced, as well as the best Spidey game us fans have ever gotten. Although Insomniac, I think, will return the Ratchet and Clank, I don't think we'll ever have the vast amount of platformers that we had back in the day. For instance, think of all the games that were developed by THQ and Cartoon Network Interactive, and other various studios. All of their games were all based off of various cartoons, which were all platformers. It's crazy to think how frequent we came by these games versus today. Let me tell you the story of how I picked up my first platformer. It all started way back in 2003. I was 3 years old and I pretty much picked up whatever game my siblings would leave on for me. I remember my older brother, who was 11 at the time, had a very good friend who stayed next door. They would play video games together day in and day out, and I remember he gave my brother this very special game. At least soon to be special to me, I should say. I remember playing Time Splitters, not sure if it was 1 or 2, and my brother hands me this disc. On the disc I see big green glowing eyes on what looks like a metal face. All I could think was, new game, and I threw it in, and I vividly remember the first time I took control of the character. This character name was Ratchet. a furry looking animal known as a Lombax. I was fascinated by the way he could do a front flip double jump and smash boxes that had tons of screws come out, known in the game as bolts, which is a currency used to buy new weapons. Even though I didn't comprehend story much because at the time I spammed X anytime I wasn't playing the game, I was so in love with the way you traverse through this world with the helipack, slingshot, magna boots, grind boots. It was all so fascinating, and I remember the challenge the game brought me. I remember having to keep watch of the 4 blue circles on top of the screen known as nanotech, because if you lost it all, it was game over. I remember getting stuck on various parts of the game and literally sometimes bring myself to real life tears crying as I try over and over and over to get through it. If by now, if you don't know what game I'm talking about, I'm speaking of Ratchet and Clank. This game has been an all-time favorite of mine because I literally grew up with it. Every year a new game came out, building on top of the other. Then I caught wind of Spyro, the OG Crash games, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, Sly Cooper, and the list goes on. I remember the first game I ever got on PS3, and this was the sole reason I got a PS3 on my 8th birthday in 2008. It was specifically for Ratchet and Clank Future, Tools of Destruction. After numerous times of seeing the commercial on TV hearing, "What a wonderful world," and me begging my parents, it would finally become a reality, and I got it. The way this genre of games have touched me is in no other way any other genre since has been able to resonate with me. As time moves forward from 2008, I'm introduced to games such as the Uncharted series, which led me to playing Uncharted 2 multiplayer. This was the start of me getting into the whole online gaming aspect of things. Then again, I was introduced to the next big thing from my older brother, which was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. This game was what really pivoted me into online gaming. It's the reason why I got my first headset and caused me to stay up countless nights playing on the same maps repeatedly over and over and over again, rocking an ACR with the heartbeat sensor, going to Rust to do quickscope battles. As I was having a blast moving through time, playing games like Black Ops and whatever came after in the Call of Duty series, as well as getting into series such as Far Cry, Killzone, Assassin's Creed, the future Grand Theft Autos of 4 and 5, Resident Evil, God of War, and the list really goes on. I have forgotten about the 3D platformers of the past. The only game that was not forgotten for me was Ratchet and Clank because it's an all-time favorite, and they have the ongoing future series going on at the time. Which leads us to year 2013, where I caught wind of The Last of Us. This was a game I was dying to try out since it was from the same developers of Uncharted. I saw this game advertised so much on Uncharted TV and was just dying to play it. I remember getting the game for $40 at a local game shop that wasn't a part of a big chain. The game was $60 at the time, but I snagged it for $40. I was literally the happiest kid on earth. Long story short, I played and ran through the game and found it spectacular. Talked about it and played it since. Now we come to the PlayStation 4, where Sony's main focus is linear third-person single-player games. This is the time when I've been grinding tons of Destiny and playing whatever exclusive Sony has to come. Game after game, they just get bigger and bigger and better, and I still haven't looked back once for a 3D platformer. I played Knack, but that just wasn't the same feel, so I continued on. Up until one day, the day that Ratchet and Clank 2016 was announced. I couldn't believe it. It was a game based on the game that I originally fell in love with. Originally, I just thought it was a remaster. I didn't think it was anything more. But then, that's when I saw that they were making a movie as well. And I couldn't even believe that. I was like, a movie based on one of my favorite games? Like, what? Like, this is insane. So after time of waiting, the game comes out and I play it. I was just in awe of how great the game looked and how similar it was to the original. But at the same time, not so similar at all. It was of high appreciation, but at the same time, it disappointed me. Then I go back and do research. I'm looking for what happens to such genres. Why can't we get more games as such? And I notice how much gaming has changed since then. It's vastly different. Every kid is online playing games such as Fortnite. Every single game is super realistic and story driven. We have more studios doing cash grabs. It's just changed so much over the years, and it changed right before my eyes. Which leads me here today, where I am right now. Sitting here with the YouTube channel that's amassed coming up on 2.6k subscribers in just 4 months, playing the exact games opposite of what I went back, making countless videos on a game I'm anticipating highly from a company that said they would never go back. It all hurts when I think about it, especially since now that I'm 19 years of age, making this very same video in a college apartment. It really shows how time has moved on, how things have all grown up. 3D platformers seem to be a time of the past, a time I want to call the golden age, and as sickening as it may be, it's an era that may never come back. thank you guys for watching that. That was the most extensive editing I have ever done. I literally cannot bring myself to words how good I feel about this video. I cried real man tears while making this as well because it made me think about my childhood. And you know, it's crazy how things have changed. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys could please make sure to leave a like on it. It took me days to make. It took a very long time, a lot of effort. I really appreciate that. Also, subscribe if you're new, you know what I'm saying? I'd really appreciate that. And also, if you can, please share this video all around the internet. Share it to anybody you know who's a gamer, anybody out there, because I'm pretty sure this would touch a lot of people at home, as well as I'll do a video just like this once a week from now on. So usually my channel is just based around The Last of Us 2 content, and you guys probably don't know that, but I have a lot of subscribers who came here just for that. But to diversify myself and, you know, reach out to other people, I want to do video projects, and I'll do one per week. Since this does take a while, I'll do one per week. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Again, if you guys could share the video, also make sure you like and subscribe if you're new. That'd be much appreciated. You guys have a great day.